Okay, welcome to Lab 13, Configuring NPS Policies as part of the Microsoft Official Academic Course, Administering Windows Server 2012 R2, in preparation for exam 70-411. So let's take a look. This first video, I've actually been able to combine some of these. Got 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. I'm going to try and do this all in one video. So we're going to look at creating and configuring connection request policies, creating and configuring network policies, and then exporting and importing the NPS configuration. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started on 13.1, which is creating and configuring connection request policies. In this exercise, you start using NPS policies, specifically the connection request policies. Connection request policies are used to establish sets of connections and settings that Radius servers perform when authenticating, authorizing, and accounting connection requests through the Radius clients. The estimated completion time is about 15 minutes, but we've been running pretty quickly on some of these. I'm going to go ahead and go over first question. What does the default connection request policy do? And the answer, it processes all authentication requests locally. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. And we are still logged into the RWDC 01 from the previous exercise. And we're already in the network policy server again from the previous exercise. And we're going to double click policies, which is right here. And then we're going to right click connection request policies. So left click, right click, new. And then we're going to type in connection request policy 1. And then under the type of network access, we're going to select remote access or VPN. And then we'll click on next. We're going to click on add. And we want to click on the tunnel type. And then click on add. And we want to click on IP encapsulating security payload. Checkbox that right there. Layer 2 tunneling protocol. And secure select tunneling protocol. And then click on OK. Then we'll go ahead and click on add. We're going to click on daytime restrictions. By the way, this is a great one to use, especially if you are working in an organization that only works 9 to 5. So there's no reason anybody should need access between, let's say, 8 p.m. and 5 a.m. except during maintenance of the network. So we'll go ahead and click on daytime, click on add, and then we want to do Monday to Friday. And I'm just doing my shift and my down arrow. Oops. And I want to do 8 a.m. 5 p.m. Now I'm using my, so I used my shift and my down arrow. Now I'm using my shift and my right arrow to go over to 5 p.m. That should be about 5. There we go, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then click on permitted. And then back at the specify conditions page, so I'll click on OK. Click on next. 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 If you're following along in your lab manual, this would be where you take your next screenshot. And then here you're going to click on Finish. And that's the end of this exercise. It brings us to exercise 13.2. So during this exercise, you continue to use the NPS policies by creating and configuring network policies. Network policies establish sets of conditions, constraints, and settings that specify who is authorized to connect to the network and the circumstances under which the user can or cannot connect. The estimated time for completion of this is about 10 minutes, and we're currently right about the 6-minute mark. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the questions, and then we'll go through the lab itself. What are the three components that make up an NPS network policy? And that is conditions, constraints, and settings. And what is the default access permission? And that would be access granted. Alright, so we're back on our RWDC01. The network policy server is still up. And we want to right-click network policy. So left-click, right-click, and choose New. And the policy name text box, we want to type in Network Policy 1. For the type of network access server, we're going to select Remote Access Server VPN Dial-Up. And then click on Next. On the Specify Conditions page, we want to click on Add. We want to click on Windows Groups. Okay, click on Add. In the Enter the Object's name, we want to type in Domain Guests, so Add Group. Domain Guests. There we go. And then go ahead and do OK. Click on OK again, and then click on Next. On the Specify Access Permission page, we're going to go ahead and click on Next. This is where you would take, if you're following along in your lab manual, you're going to do your next print screen, and then click on Next. On the Configure Constraints page with the idle timeout selected, we're going to select Disconnect after maximum idle time. And we're going to use 15 minutes. Click on Next. Click on Next, and then Finish. And now we should have the Network Policy 1 is now listed. And this is the end of this exercise, so let's jump right into exercise 13.3 since we're only about 9 minutes in. Okay, exporting and importing the NPS configuration. In the previous lab, you created and used NPS templates to help configure Radius. During this lesson, you export the configuration for the NPS server to an XML file and then import the configuration back into the system. The mindset, you can export the entire NPS configuration, including Radius clients and servers, network policy, connection request policy, registry, and logging configuration from the NPS server for import on another NPS server by using the netsh command. The estimated time for this is about 10 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right into this question. What does this warning say? So let's go ahead and get into the RWDC. Here we are on the RWDC01. Right click, go into Command Prompt Admin, and we are going to type in NETSH and enter. And then here we're going to type in NPS and enter. And then we're going to type in EXPORT space file name equals quotation C:\\back/BAK.XML quotation space export PSK equals yes and oops, sorry. Here we're going to go ahead and click on enter. Okay, the NPS server configuration is successfully exported. Be sure to store this in a safe place since it contains unencrypted shared secrets. That's right here in the second paragraph. Here we're going to type in exit and then enter. And then to import back in, we're going to type in NETSH space NPS space import space file name equals quotation C:\\back/BAK.XML quotation enter. Okay, it was successful. So if you're following along in your lab manual, this would be where you take your next screenshot. So now we're going to go ahead and close out of this, close out of this. And this is the end of this exercise and this lab and this video.